G'day, legends, and welcome to the Wednesday Pot Noodle of Celtic Down Under. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight are Shane, Johnny, and Liam. How are you, Shane?
Doing well, thanks, mate. It's been a good couple of days. Been able to get out and catch a couple of Women's World Cup games and really enjoyed the atmosphere. Australia retained the Ashes. That's always wonderful news. My new hoops arrived today, as you can tell for those watching on the online stream. And that ties in nicely because, most importantly, the Celtic were back. So it's been a good couple of days.
Sure is. Johnny, you look like you just walked through the door. We're saying off air, remove the tie and headset on, and off we go again. So how are you, mate? You're back after your holiday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just I am literally just at the door. So I hope the listeners appreciate the commitment. But yeah, no, the holiday was good. The holiday was lovely. It rained the entire time. But who cares? It's seeing family and it's seeing Scotland. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
And Liam, how are you, mate?
Good. It's very, very hot here today, so if my head's a wee bit shinier than usual, that's why. Just back from Yokohama and Osaka, where I took in a couple of football games, which we'll talk about shortly.
Absolutely. So we'll just, before we jump straight into it, just if you haven't done so already, and you're watching on the YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you get the notice whenever our podcast shows go live. I was looking at the stats the other day, and we're only getting of our viewers, only about 40% of them are subscribers. So if you haven't done so, please hit that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate that. If you're listening via your podcast app, just hope you enjoy the show on there too, and hit the subscribe on there. Leave us a review as well. We'd appreciate it. I'm going to start off here, Liam, by bringing up a comment that Andrew Galea has. Liam, I told you, mate, I was a striker. So we'll start there. The Japan Tour recap. So we'll start off with the 6-4 loss to Yokohama, and then we'll follow up with our 1-0 win against Gambro Osaka. Liam, for the listeners and everyone tuning in on YouTube, Liam actually was 50-50 on whether he was going to be on the pod tonight, and then it got to the point where he was like, nah, not going to be on. So I asked him to record some, his thoughts on the games and what it was all like being there. So we're talking about in our group chat, Liam, where I'll just play those sound bites and then you just mouth off like it's some kung fu movie where the mouth doesn't match up with everything, so it just looks really awkward. Yeah. And then we'll just go from there. So when you're ready.
Okay.
Summary of the Celtic tour to Japan. Day 1, Yokohama. So we went down to Yokohama, my wife and I, and it was luckily fantastic weather and a great day to go and see a game of football. Special shout out to the scarf vendors at Yokohama Station. It's a special level of optimism to be selling woolen scarves in 32 degrees heat. But anyway, we got to the stadium. Plenty of merchandise on show. Celtic did well for that part, as overpriced as it was. Got into the stadium, beautiful big stadium, Nissan Stadium, 72,000 capacity, the largest in Japan. My second time being there, and it was great facilities throughout. Crowd was a wee bit disappointing, unfortunately, because there was only 20,000 of a possible 72,000 in the stadium. Game kicked off. I thought that everyone that was on the park played well, considering their level of fitness in comparison to their opponents. Yokohama are midway through a season, and a season in which they are doing very well. Daisen Maeda was like a man possessed in the first half. Clearly felt he had a point to prove against his former club, and did so with gusto. He was outstanding, completely unplayable in that first half. But Celtic's defence was a bit scattershot. Some passes are misplaced, but to be honest, no more than you would expect from pre-season at this point. So we went in for a 3-2 lead at half-time. Unfortunately, of course, second half, we changed most of the personnel, which resulted in the inevitable loss of shape. and of course, in turn, it meant that we shipped a few goals. But I really wouldn't read too much into the result of this game. It was just great for me personally to get to see Celtic again for the first time in more than 10 years. It was great to finally be able to take my wife to her first ever Celtic game. And it was fantastic to meet in person so many listeners to the show. And, you guys going all the way from Australia, New Zealand, various other places just to see Celtic, it's incredible. I was grousing about having to make a 3-hour train journey, but you guys just knock it out the park completely. It's incredible. And also the number of you that are still going to Korea this week, despite the fact the game's been cancelled. Fair play to you all. I really hope you all have a great time. So that's it for day 1, Yokohama. I'll be back shortly with a roundup of day 2 in Osaka.
So, Liam, great stuff with the ventriloquist work there. RL77 saying Liam has a great future as a ventriloquist. So that was good fun. But yeah, listening to that, like your summary on there was a lot of what you were saying was reminding me of things that we saw in Sydney, like from our point of view as a Celtic fan in Australia, travelling up, being able to see the boys play in the person and everything like that. It was just a great thing. So, first question, personally, how was it for you seeing the boys, and did your wife enjoy the games?
For me personally, it was wonderful. It was a bit emotional because don't want to get too dark here, but it's the first game I've been to since the passing of my Uncle Frank, and the last 2 Celtic games I was at, he was by my side, so I could feel him. I could feel his presence there alongside us at the game that night, and I know wherever he is now, he was watching. So that was an emotional aspect to it, but a good feeling in that sense. Funniest moment of the night concerns my wife when I bumped into two viewers from New Zealand. Apologies, guys, I can't remember your names, but it was good chatting with you. One of them said, "Oh, it's great to meet you. Great to meet your wife too." And I said, "Yeah, I'm so glad that viewers finally get a chance to meet my wife, so you can see that she is a real person and not a tax dodge." So, it was great experience all around. Had a really nice day in Yokohama. Really nice day in Tokyo the next day before we headed back as well. Went to the zoo. Went to see some pandas. It was great. Great all round. As I say, the only sticking point is that I think the tickets were too expensive and the merch was too expensive as well. But apart from that, it was great. It was great to be back in a stadium surrounded by Celtic fans and feeling at home despite being thousands of miles away from home.
Yeah, so just with the game, I'll throw to you in a second, Shane, but one thing I did want to touch on that we brought up the comment on early on from Andrew Galea. I told you, mate, I was a striker. We spoke about it last week on the pod where I was saying that the way Rodgers plays, I see Maeda suiting that more as a striker in the Vardy sort of playing on the guy's shoulder, and then he went and did it in the game straight after. So what we've seen him do for Japan and what you've been telling us all for a long time, to see him go and do that at Celtic and score a hat-trick, it's just proven that there's more strings to his bow here. And, yeah, I believe he's playing out of position when he's on the left. So it was good quality from him. A little thing he was mentioning before about you could feel your Uncle Frank there. I was going to make a joke for you. I know it was a serious thing, but are you sure it wasn't Maeda pressuring you because he was everywhere in the stadium?
That photo doing the rounds of Maeda celebrating his own goal in the crowd, that was something else, I tell you.
Yeah. That was what I was setting you up for there, Liam. So I was like, I don't know how he's going to take this. Is he going to just kick it out the studio or have a laugh? But no, you're right about Maeda, just seeing that. And yeah, the overall standard of the J League, as we're all aware, is a lot higher quality, in my opinion, than the bottom 6 teams in the Scottish League. Let's be honest about that.
Well, if you look at Yokohama, took a few goals off of Man City a few days later as well, despite getting beat. So I think that the best teams in Japan are definitely a lot better than the average team in Scotland or England, I would say.
Andrew Galea was also saying it was good to see opposition that can actually play football. Good games for pre-season. So, Shane, what was your thoughts on the Yokohama game?
I think pretty much Liam covered off all my key points, which was, we came up against a team that's midway through a season, a quality team that's doing very well, and they played that way on the night. And conversely, there were moments of brilliance. There were particular players who stood out, and there were also mistakes. But mistakes from a team that looked like they were a bit rusty and just weren't switched on, and who were at the start of their pre-season, basically. And so it played out as kind of everything you'd expect. And Liam touched on all the key points. The moments of quality that were there were fantastic. I mean, I just think of that Hatate winning the ball, then releasing Abada, who then crosses it to Maeda, playing off the shoulder of the defender. And just that actual one moment in the game was a wonderful piece of quality alone, right? But then conversely, you flip that with a couple of the goals, and particularly the first one we concede. It swings and roundabouts. It just looked like a team that was on top of things, playing well in their league against a team that's just starting their journey for this season. So I definitely didn't walk away from it going, we've lost, this is a terrible result, or this is frustrating. It was simply a pre-season game, and they were good opposition, and good on them.
Andrew brings up Ismaida, very effective at dropping back, getting involved, playing others in before pushing forward himself. That was a good little tweak we saw up front with the strikers doing that. One other thing I wanted to mention before we throw to you, Johnny, and you just touched on it, Shane, was the defence. I actually didn't think Kobayashi was that bad in the first half until he got hurt. I thought, he's out of position on one thing here, but overall, I think he's used to that sort of level. He was back home, so it was good for him to get out there and play. But, overall, I think our defence needs a bit of work, and that's been addressed partially today, which we'll talk about a bit later on in the pod. But, I just thought probably 3 of their goals of the 6 we conceded were pretty sloppy on our part. And with more games together and, strengthening a few players coming back, like a Carter Vickers comes back, new signing coming in. And now if we get another 1 or 2 new signings as well to strengthen it, whether it's a goalkeeper, whether that's a right back or a left back or whatever, then we'll be fine. Those will tighten up. But Johnny, anything you wanted to add?
Not particularly. I think I share the same sort of sentiments. I have to admit that I was extremely jet lagged. I think I fell asleep at 3-2 or 3-0 or something like that, and sort of woke up to the shock of quite a high scoring game. Look, I like everyone else. I think there's not much to read into it, except it was a preseason friendly, so it's all about fitness. It's good to see some guys do well or continue their momentum, and I guess you hope that some, such as Kobayashi, kind of maybe took the opportunity. Didn't happen. It's not the end of the world. I'm sure more will come. In fact, there will be more opportunities for him. Look, they were, I think, J-League teams are 20 games in, and I mean, look, I know it's high scoring, but it's not as if we did terrible. I think we did quite admirably, to be honest. If you've got a team that's played 20 games, 18 games, whatever it is. So it's you take what it is. It's all about fitness. So entertaining game.
Shane, one last thing I want to throw to you because of the old Melbourne victory thing here. How good was it here and just sitting there? All of a sudden the crowd goes quiet and you just hear Muskie just going, effing blah, blah, blah. I had one of his players, I'm like, memories.
It brought back some wonderful nights sitting in the Amy Park stands just when the crowd would go silent, and you could genuinely hear Muskie from another suburb over some days. That's how fierce he yells. But good result for him. And as Liam, just to touch on something in relation to Muskie, and Liam mentioned this, Yokohama did very well against a very good City team the next couple of days. They went 2 up at one stage. They didn't win, but they still showed their quality. So they're a decent team. So Muskie's got them playing some good football, continuing in that Ange mold. And they're going to be a good team that we can actually play against, really, and actually compare ourselves to a little bit, and particularly at that point of the season. So absolute credit to them and the way they played. And yeah, I was really enjoyed. And I think Johnny actually mentioned this. It was a really enjoyable game to watch, even regardless of whether you are a Marinos fan or a Celtic fan or even a neutral. It was a good game to watch. It had something for everybody.
I would just add to that, a special shout out to the Marinos fans behind their goal. I don't know how much it came across on TV, but they were outstanding. The volume they were creating, for what was probably only about 5,000 or 6,000 of them at that end. The sound generated was incredible. Put the Green Brigade to shame. Honestly, they were an amazing crowd, and I've developed a newfound respect for Yokohama after that game, definitely.
All right, Michael McDonald in the comments. This call from a lot of Celtic fans for more players to come in. How big a squad do you really think we can carry? That will be addressed probably in about 10, 15 minutes time on the podcast. So hang around for that, because that's actually something that we are going to be talking about later today. So what I'll do is I'll play Liam's little chat about the Osaka game, and then we'll quickly wrap that one up too.
Okay, so now on to day 2 of my roundup of Celtic's tour of Japan, and this time we were heading down to Osaka. Bit of a trek for me, about 5 hours of train journeys, and of course an overnight stay necessary because of the length of time. But nice to get away for the weekend, nice to see a game of football. Also, despite living in Osaka for 5 years, this was the first time that I had been to the Panasonic Suita Stadium, home of Gamba Osaka. Tidy wee stadium, very nice stadium, 40,000 capacity, so just over half the size of the stadium that I'd been to Yokohama the previous week. But still a very good arena, a better footballing venue than Yokohama, I think, because you were that wee bit closer to the pitch. And it was, the credit to the home fans. Gamba are not having a great season by their standards, but they are doing a good job of, the fans are doing a good job rather of keeping the team fired up. And it was a very good, very competitive game. Despite the fact that it was 0-0 at half time, I actually felt it was as entertaining as the Yokohama game had been, by which point that was 3-2 at half time. But I really, TV replays show that both Celtic and Gamba had perfectly good goals disallowed for no apparent reason. The Gamba keeper made one of the best saves I've seen in years, saving a close-range shot from Maeda, who again was just unplayable. He was outstanding. As the second half wore on, I felt that Celtic were in control, and it was good to see them finally get the goal. Bernabe, possibly the first time I've ever seen someone latch onto their own mishit through ball and it end in a goal. Credit where it's due. He was carrying on the Ange Postecoglou mantra of "we never stop," and indeed he did not stop until that ball was in the net. Special mention for Gamba Osaka's goalkeeper, who played the first hour or so, Kosei Tani. Only 22 years old, only played about a dozen games or so for the first team, but really looks like a great young prospect. And it's not very often I say that about a Japanese goalkeeper. So he is definitely one to watch. And, I'll just say it, Celtic could do worse if we're looking for a long-term replacement for Joe Hart. But overall, a great conclusion to the tour. Always good to end on a win. Got to meet even more fans of the show. So big hello to any of you that are listening. And got to spend a wee bit of time in my former home of Osaka, which is always nice. All round great trip.
Yeah, like something you touched on there, Liam, was we've been asked heaps in the comments over the last 6 months, are there any good goalkeepers in Japan? And we keep saying only Michelin Garak, and then we played against 2 decent ones in 2 games. So, it's funny that I'd be happy with him as well. Like as you said, if you wanted to bring him in, the goalkeeper, decent player, but Johnny, what was your thoughts on the Osaka game?
Yeah, I mean, this was one I tried to watch as much as I could. I think I watched the whole game, but it was sort of like in the delirium of jet lag still. I thought it was a bit of a slog of a game, to be honest. And I think for all the points that Liam mentioned, it was just we were definitely trying to fire some, there was definitely some attempts on goal and stuff, and it was just the goalkeeper was very, very good. And I think we were closed down very well and all of those things that you expect in a preseason friendly. And I thought Barnaby's goal we'll probably talk about a lot in the future, but I think what's really good to see is how Brendan reacted to it. I think he was clearly very impressed with one of his players who didn't just misplace the pass and then put his head down and sort of move on. He fought to get that goal and stuff, and I think his reaction was great, and maybe there's a future here for Barnaby sort of really kicking on, and Rogers sort of brings out on him. But he was definitely impressed, and it was good to see. I think that it definitely surprised the goalkeeper, that's for sure. So yeah, no, it was another good game. I wouldn't say it was entertaining as the first one, but like what I said before, all these games are about fitness and getting legs in, so it was good.
Yeah, for that one, like I said, that I think Bernabei would probably suit Rogers' system a bit better as a winger and a bit less defensive responsibilities. And yeah, he was on the wrong side of the field when that happened. He was over on the right. Don't know why, can't remember, but he got the job done and competed, so that's the main thing. And that game, you said it was a bit of a slog, Johnny, and then we've got Andrew in the comments is saying Osaka was a better game all round. I don't really agree with you on that, Andrew. I thought that game had the vibes of an away game at Livy, where we get a lot of ball in the right areas and we just can't do anything with it. And we got there in the end, though. We got a win, but yeah, it was good to see the whole first half team, second half team. I think looking at this for me, I'm going. I think Siegrist's time was up at the club, but we'll talk about that a little later. I just don't see him. I thought he'd be up and about thinking he could challenge Hart, the way he's finished the season and he's got a year left on his contract and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, for me, it was just, I thought he'd be up and about for it, but it doesn't look like it. So, Shane, we'll quickly go to you for a little chat about it, and then Liam to finish off the Japanese tour chat. So over to you, Shane.
Look, I'll be brief because Liam, Johnny, and yourself really covered off all my keynotes on it as well. Look, to be honest, I still can't get enough of the Bernabei goal, and rewatching the footage today, they have this sort of the wide shot, and I see him sort of hoof the ball up the park, and he does kind of this little skip and throws his head back, when he realizes no one's up there. And then all of a sudden he's like a bull out of a gate and just straight after it. And I can just looking at that moment, and it's almost like little Ange is on his shoulder and just been like whispering in his ear, like, we never stop. And it's just like triggered him to go full pelt for that ball. And look, in all seriousness, it showed a lot of desire to win that back, to obviously make up for the error, which he felt guilty for, which was the pass. And, the keeper's put under pressure from the back pass. He still continues, so he doesn't back off. He gets his reward for a really good effort, and credit to him. It would have been easily for him to just throw his head back and go, whoops, oh, well, it's just a pre-season game, a bit of cobwebs. But he didn't, and he worked hard to make amends, and he got sort of the ultimate sort of reward in the end for it. So credit to him, and maybe that'll kick him on a little bit. Who knows?
Liam? You want to finish? Anything you want to add? Or
yeah, I mean, as I said before, the both games, it was great to be around Celtic again. But that Bernabei goal was one that I think we will remember for quite a while. One thing though, and I think this is something that is at the feet of Adidas rather than Celtic. The pricing of the jerseys at the stadium was inconsistent with the pricing of the online shop here in Japan. If I wanted to buy the new jersey, the new home jersey, it's 13,000 yen on the Adidas Japan site. However, the largest size you can order is a Japanese 2XL, which is 2 sizes smaller than a European 2XL, which is what I would ordinarily buy. So too wee for me. However, at the stadium, both Yokohama and Osaka, I had the option of buying a Japanese 4XL, which is equivalent to a 2XL in European sizes. But the price was between 18 to 19,000 yen, depending on what name was on the back, because getting a blank one wasn't an option. So slightly shady marketing there from Adidas, I think. And whether or not Celtic were complicit in that, I don't know. But that seems a wee bit dubious to deliberately hold back the bigger sizes, knowing that big fat foreigners like me are going to go to the games and try and exploit us. I think that was a wee bit naughty.
Come on, Liam, you my communist comrade over here. That's capitalism, supply and demand, mate. That's all that is.
Aye, well.
Yeah, no, it's
shambles.
Shambles, I get you. Yep.
As I say, if the shirts were available on the Adidas website, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But the fact that inventory was consciously held back to try and flog it to fans at the game just seems a bit shitty, to be honest.
Hey, Shane. Robert's telling you to take your shirt off, mate.
I agree, Robert. It is an abomination.
Are you talking about this one, Robert? Sure, you're not talking about this fine-looking attire.
All right, so let's crack on with the Japan tour stuff. We'll just talk a quick little chat because this will lead into our next topic. So we've had some couple of signings announced. So we put our whole run sheet together and planned everything. So Yang and Kwon have been confirmed as coming in. So you got a winger and a defensive midfielder, and then Naroki has just been announced as well, coming in from Legia Warsaw. So there's a centre back. So that's decent for me. Looking at it, going, okay, we're filling a few needs here. We need another winger with Jota moving on. We needed a defensive midfielder with a bit of size. Is a 6'3" central defensive midfielder, and then you got a 6'2", 6'3" centre back in Naroki. So we've got a bit of that size that Rogers was talking about wanting. So I'm pretty happy with that. But overall, guys, do you think, we'll go quickly here, do you think we'll have many more incomings at the moment, or will it all depend on outgoings and sales, and are we going to get that marquee signing? That's why the pod was named Transfer Movement. Is it enough? Like, I want to know, is this enough for you guys? I want to know that from you guys as well in the comments. So I'll give you some thinking time here, but Patrick McLaughlin is Legia Warsaw have never let us down with our purchases from there. So that is a good little spot for us to go pick some talent from. So, Shane, are you happy with those 3 signings? And what other areas do you think we'll have incomings in?
Yeah, very happy with those 3 signings. They all look like quality. They all look like they can contribute, and I think they've got good futures ahead of them, and hopefully we can see them develop and prosper at Celtic. In terms of whether it's enough and whether we need more, and there'll be more activity, I think there will be. I still think there's some key areas we're going to need more players in, perhaps an upgrade or more quality. Off the top of my head, I'd be looking goalkeeper, and I'd be looking at a sort of European level quality striker as well, and maybe that's where we need to look at spending a bit of cash. So yeah, I don't think I'd be satisfied if we left it now, and a lot of it has to focus around the Asian Cup coming up as well. We've got a good amount of depth now. We're obviously going to have a few more outgoings, but we're going to need to make sure we've got enough cover, particularly up front, if we lose a significant amount of our players to the Asian Cup in January.
Yeah, Johnny, anything you want to add? Any thoughts?
Yeah, look, so I mean, obviously, I've pretty much been thinking about this all day. just because I think it's a difficult one to really answer. Whether I'm happy or not, like I say, it's dependent on just what I can see from YouTube videos, what I'm hoping the players turn into, and then sort of just like presumptions, like, you know, I need a marquee, I need a big name, and as if that's ever worked out well for us in the past and stuff. Like, I need some sort of big name to feel comfortable and stuff. So I mean, I could be singing these people's names in the future and stuff, and I just don't know what their quality is like. I kind of did like a rundown of where I think what I think Rodgers' formations are going to be, and sort of where the players fit in roughly to that. So I just did like a 4-3-3 and a 4-2-3-1, which I think we can all agree is probably going to be the most used formations next season and stuff. I'm not entirely sure if I'm convinced in both Tilio and Yang, because we currently have 6 wingers, and 4 of them are right wingers, and only 2 are sort of maybe left wingers. So there's still a gap there, if you like. Does it really matter for us if we're going to, you know, do the old Lenny Ball stuff and switch wingers about and, you know, play wingers out of position because they're going to cut in and stuff? I don't really know. But I think in every other position, maybe bar defensive midfield or maybe a central midfielder, we have 2 actual first team players for every position, sort of stuff. Like, you'd be comfortable with whoever swapping around and stuff, apart from in wingers. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but the squad is bloated as hell, and there's still positions that we really need to strengthen. We've talked about it, like goalkeepers, apparent one. I would say, I mean, if we're thinking about Champions League stuff, Ralston days are kind of ending. Taylor could probably do with an upgrade. Like, we all love him and stuff, but we could see that as an upgrade. Is Abada going to stay? Do we need an upgrade there? Forrest isn't going to be around. He's got 1 more year, 2 more years, something like that. But he's sort of coming into that twilight years of his career and stuff. There's definitely players that we need to improve on to become like that quote unquote Czech competing Champions League team or European team if we want to push on Europa. And at the moment, we pretty much have a 25-man squad, and that's cutting out all of the deadwood, like the common sense ones, right? And I just don't really know how at least Yang and Tilio fit into the system. So I don't know if maybe one's going to go on loan. Is Tilio like coming in, playing, and then going to go on loan, or are we already foreseeing the departure of Abada? That would make a bit more sense. Is Maeda going to move into the sort of forward position, and then what happens at O? So there's a lot of like questions, I guess. Only the time's going to tell. So yeah, I guess that's kind of how I feel about it. I'm kind of like a big question mark, very, very unsure of how it's going to go. I mean, the videos seem to make Yang and Kwong look really, really decent signings. And I just think with Rocky, Naworoki, is that how you say it? Yeah, they called him Rocky on the Twitter page. I'm
just Rocky now.
Yeah, Rocky. That is absolutely the biggest hole. It's the biggest hole we had when I did like all the players and stuff, and we needed to strengthen centre back, and it was he fits in perfectly. I think Starfield might get shipped actually, and I think that's what probably is going to happen. But I guess like I said before, big question mark. I guess was to see what's going to happen going forward and stuff.
One thing there, Johnny, I'm going to jump on straight away. What role did Scott Sinclair play under Rodgers the first time around?
First time it's left wing. Yeah, that's all.
Left wing who comes back inside onto his right boot. Shane, what role does Tilio play for Australia and also for Melbourne City? Left wing, he comes back onto his right foot. Boom, there's your answer. It's 3-3. Tilio's not been signed to play on the right, especially with Yang coming in as a right winger. Tilio's going to play on the left. Everyone keeps he's a right winger. No, he's a right-footed winger, but he plays on the left.
Yeah, and to give you a little bit of peace of mind, so when he was at City recently, they were really deploying Matt Leckie on the left from memory, so Tilio had to find his way on the right and was keeping the boot out of the team. Now, Leckie went down with an injury, and it was a very easy transition across for Tilio to go to the left. And so I'm definitely thinking the same as Jared. I can see Tilio playing out on the left and cutting in, and so instead of having the wingers necessarily sort of keeping their width, more being like those tricky wingers, as Jared calls it, and they're sort of looking to cut inside and cut into those inside channel kind of things. And I can see Tilio doing that.
The battle for Tilio is going to be, in that role, is going to be who's going to play. Is it going to be Tilio or is it going to be Haxa? That's the battle.
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
It's not between Yang and Tilio on the right. It's between Tilio and Haxa on the left is where he'll fit.
Instead of Maeda, do you think he's taken Maeda's first
striker?
place?
Maeda's a striker in this system under Rodgers.
Well, I mean, yeah, all right. So if Maeda's a striker, if we're all going to just assume that's what's happening, is that end of O then? We're hardly going to have three strikers all rotating unless we go two up front, and then the whole system kind of shifts. I
see O as more in the role that what's his name, Edward played. You know, when you had Dembele and Griffiths as your two main strikers, and then you had Edward his first season being that young guy developing behind the scenes to take one of their spots. I see him in that role.
I mean, potentially what we're saying here is that O is surplus, and he's only been here for less than a year, I can't remember.
I'm not saying he's surplus. I'm saying he's a different sort that's not going to be a starter every week.
Yeah, no, like I get that. I mean, but when we'll talk about it in a minute, but we've got such a bloated squad. Do we really have the luxury of having three strikers, one that's not around every week? I mean, we'd really have Kyogo running 70 minutes, maybe 65 minutes, and then bringing on Maeda. That would be sort of like the perfect system, right? And then is the reservist, or not playing all the time, playing now and again. It's just, maybe it works. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but I just don't quite understand how all the players are going to fit perfectly.
There's a possibility too.
Yeah, I mean, two up front and that's just not something that I'm not considering, because I think there's an assumption about the formations that Rodgers is going to play. What we've played with under Ange, and then what Rodgers had before, with the formation he preferred before, and that's the assumptions that I was taking when I did my sort of like team sheets. So maybe two up front would sort of fit with three strikers. Again, look, we'll just see. Like I'm sure. Well, the people behind the scenes know more than we do. So, yeah.
All I'm going to say on that, Johnny, as well, is Rodgers, I will give credit, is he's a really good game manager in terms of if one formation's not working, he'll go to the next one and he'll make his changes, especially now we've got 5 subs as well. That plays into his strengths. So I'm not a massive fan of Rodgers, the person, for what happened last time, but I'm putting that to the side. Manager coming in and saying, okay, if the usual 4-3-3 isn't working, let's look at this formation. Let's look to go, 3 at the back with 2 up front. He is the sort that I trust he will make the decisions quickly enough to make those adjustments. But I think we should go to Shane and Liam, because you and me have been chatting for a little bit, hogging the podcast.
Something I would say, actually, I agree with what John's saying, but I actually interpret it in a slightly different way. Since Rodgers has come back, he's been very consistent in every interview he's given that the signing policy is about raising the overall quality of the squad. So I think having players that don't necessarily have a set role, i.e. could fulfill 2 or 3 different roles in the team if need be. So, I mean, from what you're saying, Telio is that kind of player. So is Kwon, from what I've read about him. I think that gives a proverbial rocket to the players who are still here as well. You could argue that one of the best things about signing Bernabe last season was that it made Taylor a better player, because it kept him on his toes. He knew that he had that competition. And I think that, having more midfielders and more wingers in the squad is going to also drive on the midfielders and wingers that we already have. So this kind of indecision, if we like, amongst the support about what's our strongest team and what's our formation going to be, whatever, I actually think it's a good thing. because right now you better believe every one of those players in that squad that wants to be there, and I'm not convinced everybody does want to be there, but the ones that are up for this and want to remain are going to be fighting as hard as they can for the next few weeks in training to justify their place in whatever our strongest 11 ends up being.
Just on that, Liam, before we throw to you, Shane, good point, because for me, if us as supporters who follow this like really closely can't figure out what the best lineup is going to be, the best formation, good luck to Michael Beale and those idiots trying to figure it out. So,
Good point. Very good point.
But Shane, we'll go to you. Finish this bit.
Yeah, I think just coming back to Johnny's point from before, Johnny obviously, mentioned earlier he thinks the squad's bloated, and I think that's a very fair comment. And I can understand, with what he's saying about sort of the players we're signing, are we literally going to sign players who are never really going to get an opportunity or be given a chance, and it's just kind of wasted money. But I think conversely, and this is more to Liam's point with what Brendan said about strengthening the squad overall, we've always talked about having next man up. So Jared, you often say it's always the next man up. So this having so many quality players allows us that flexibility in case of injuries, in case of poor form, and it also gives us a little bit of a backup when players shine that inadvertently catch the eye of teams that have a lot of money to spend either over east or down south, and so we're not kind of hamstrung by losing a quality player and then going, okay, do we really have anyone to fill that void? So it's all about finding that right balance, though. You don't want people, sitting on the bench or not being able to get in the match day squad who are quality players, because it is a waste. But at the same time, having that kind of redundancy means that we're in a much better position if we need to be, if something unexpected happens, like a player being bored or injuries or, even the Asian Cup, right? So it just means we're well prepared. But I share your sentiments. There has to be a balance, right? And it's about finding that right balance.
100%. And yeah, it is about the balance. It's about figuring it out. And I'm going to go on a little tangent here, saying this, that we want to have, and we keep saying about the production line having the depth in the squad. If we have two players battling it out for each position, and it's like the best man, next man up, whoever's in the best form gets the starting spot, reminds me of something that I saw in the was in one of the Michael Jordan documentaries back in the day, and he goes, when they won their last lot of three NBA titles in a row, he goes, their practices were harder than the games. If you've got a young, hungry squad who have all come in and all want to establish themselves and be the first team starter, and a team that's in the Champions League and challenging and winning league titles and going for domestic trebles and all that, and be developing under a coach who's really good at developing young players in Rodgers, if they're all going as hard as possible to each other in training and pushing and challenging and pushing the levels and raising the level, what's going to happen? The games are going to be easy. So I actually look at that as it's not just great in terms of squad depth. It's not just great in terms of we've got lots of assets, so someone gets sold, next man up, good, bang, we're good to go. It's also good for raising the standard, raising the level day on day, week on week, month on month over the course of a season. And then the baseline of what is an acceptable standard within the club and squad goes from here at the start of the season to here. So I actually say it's a good thing. It's just getting rid of all the crap and the dead wood that we need to get rid of. I will crack into that now.
What a segue.
Yeah. Hey, I do good
segues. Here we go.
So we're going to start off with Brendan Rodgers has said that he wants the squad at around the 25 players. That'd be ideal. So I'm going to go through this bit earlier today. Transfers in. So Odin Thiago home from Valerenga for about £2.5 million. Tilio from Melbourne City for about £1.5 million. Yang from Gangwon for £2.5 million. Kwon, undisclosed fee, it's around $800,000 to £1 million there. Mate Naroki for about 4.2, 4.3 million. So they're our signings so far. Our departures. Jota's gone for 25 million. Connor Hazard went for about £200,000. Adam Montgomery to Fleetwood Town on loan. Liam Shaw to Wigan on loan. Azazi Uragidi has left to France on an undisclosed. Aaron Moyes retired. Barkas, contract terminated, released from the club. So that's the business so far, which leaves us with our goalkeeper situation. So at the goalkeeper position, we have Joe Hart, Scott Bain, Benjamin Siegrist, and then I put at the bottom who our best, most likeliest guy from the B team squad last season to break in. So we've got Toby Oluwayemi there. Okay, so based on that there's a lot of talk where we need to bring in another keeper. That Likovic or whatever it is, the Croatian guy, his move's fallen through apparently, so he's still a chance. Apparently he wants to come to Celtic, so watch his space and someone to challenge Joe Hart. But for me, realistically, looking at the goalkeepers, is Siegrist, I said earlier on, is Siegrist going to be challenging Hart for the number 1 jersey this season? What's your thoughts, John?
Yeah, look, I mean, as much as we can't buy too much into the friendlies, I think I started to see some of the stuff that others have been saying all over, including the CDU hosts and stuff, with Hart. I think time to he's only got a year left. I think maybe we just let that run down. I mean, I honestly couldn't pick between Bain and Siegrist who to get rid of, to be honest, but because they're kind of the same goalkeeper to me, that they don't really give as much, and they're just the other one sort of thing. So I kind of picked Bain just because he's been around longer and it hasn't worked out. But I think somebody said that Siegrist's only got a year left as well, so maybe we just let that run down. And that's an easy way to lose a player as well. So maybe we keep Bain. I don't see any B team keepers getting through. I think what we need is, for the time being, we might have Hart, and then we might have another goalkeeper coming in. Maybe Hart steps down to the subs, be the next keeper in line, and then just whoever the youth is. I think is the only system to have. I just don't think our keeper situation is very strong at the moment, so it's kind of hard to definitively say who we should keep and who we should get rid of.
Just for the guys in the comments, I'm not saying Toby is going to be stepping up to our team. I know he's gone on loan to our new feeder team in Austria, playing over there now, so he'll be off getting some first team experience. I just said he was the most likely to come up, but looking at that lineup, my personal view is Siegrist isn't for it. Then you've got Hart and Bain. If you're playing a Champions League game or a Glasgow derby and there's an injury in training and you're left with Scott Bain in goal.
Yep.
Ooh,
well, yeah, that's it.
That's more why I'm assessing that. So realistically, it's 2 keepers who, if Bain was to be our third string, fine. Bring in another guy to compete with Hart. I mentioned Joe Gauchi on the pod all the time. I'm still all in on that as well as an option. But say if you brought someone in to compete with Joe Hart who could challenge him for the number 1 jersey and be his long-term replacement next season, great. That's what we need. Shane, Liam, anything to add on that?
Yeah, well, I mentioned before that I wasn't convinced that all the members of the squad still want to be there, and Siegrist is one that to me does not look interested. He seems quite content to just be a backup and collect his wage every week and go through the motions. Maybe I'm being unfair on the guy, but he doesn't seem to me like we signed him with the intention that he was going to challenge Joe Hart, because at the time I think he was the best goalkeeper in Scotland outside of Celtic. And he's just not kicked on at all. He's regressed, and regressed quite badly. Bain has made it clear he's quite happy being a backup. And the club have made it clear they're quite happy having him as a backup because they gave him that longer contract. Would I have a problem with putting Bain into a league game against Motherwell or St Mirren? No. Would I have a problem putting him into a cup final against the Huns? Yes, I would, absolutely. I don't want that. And that's the problem. if Joe Hart gets injured, you've got a guy who we all agree isn't quite good enough, and we've got another guy who I think we all agree isn't particularly interested. So yeah, there needs to be fresh competition there. I mentioned Kosei Tani, but not necessarily him, but somebody of that profile, a young, hungry goalkeeper who is just breaking into a decent team and is happy to come and serve an apprenticeship under Joe Hart for a year or two and learn the ropes. And then, maybe we could do the thing of the cup goalkeeper and have this secondary goalkeeper playing the cups. I'm not a big fan of that personally, but I know that a lot of teams do that now. And that's a good way to kind of get players in the mood for stepping up to the first team later on. But yeah, we definitely need another goalkeeper. Definitely.
Won't happen, Liam, with the cups because everyone wants trebles.
Well, there is that, aye.
Shane, you got anything to add, or should we just crack on to the defenders?
You boys have covered it all.
All right, so defenders, we've got Alistair Johnson, Greg Taylor, Carl Starfelt, Liam Scales, Yuki Kobayashi, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Alexandra Burnaby, Anthony Ralston, Stephen Welsh, and then the two defenders, Bosun Lowell, Dane Murray, if he's back fit. So realistically, looking at that lot there, for me, the questions are, does Scales have a long-term, career at our club? Probably not. Does Welsh? Probably not. He's not breaking in ahead of guys. And then you look at it and go, can we do better than Ralston? Or can we do better than, say, Taylor or Burnaby at left back for Champions League? Those are the questions. So, Shane, I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts on the defence?
Well, look, I've been a big Liam Scales fan for quite a while, as everyone knows on the pod. But look, I think with the recent signings, including Rocky coming in, I just can't see him maintaining a spot despite his versatility. So I think he's more than likely out. Stephen Welsh is an interesting one. I've just got this feeling that Brendan rates him and wants to give him a chance. I don't know why. I just get this vibe that Rodgers really wants to see how he goes, and he might actually end up keeping him around. I'm probably at the stage now where I think for both him and the club, it would be good for him to move on. So he's got, as we've heard before, plenty of suitors. I think he's still got some Serie A clubs that are looking at him. That'd be a good move for him if it gets him first-team football. Obviously, Scotland's heading towards, fingers crossed, a major tournament soon. He'd be wanting to put his name in that frame. So, it makes perfect sense. And yeah, I think the fullbacks now that we... Yeah, sorry, mate. No, you go.
Talking about the Scotland squad as well. The centre-back in Scotland, other than, what's his name? The guy who's just gone down to Watford, Porteous. The centre-backs in the Scotland squad are getting up there in age. So he's got to think, if I make that move and I do well over in Italy, for instance, then I'm a chance. But then, as CJ's saying, we might keep Welsh for his Champions League registration.
I feel like he'd stay if Rodgers says he'll get an opportunity. I think if he doesn't go on in this window, I think you can be guaranteed that he'll get some sort of opportunity with the squad. But I was just going to finish off on my point. I do think the fullbacks are an area we need to look at. I don't know necessarily if we need to bring in newer players or whether we need to move them on. I'm a bit undecided, but I think going into a Champions League campaign with Taylor and Johnston and then their understudies of Burnaby and Ralston does leave us a little bit on edge. So it's probably an area we need to look at.
Johnny, Liam, any of you guys got anything to add?
Oh, look, the only thing I really want to add is you've mentioned the exact defenders I was going to mention as well that I picked out. So I think that means that it's pretty apparent to all of us. Scales, move on. Welsh, move on. Improvements, Ralston. Yep. I'm not saying that he's a bad player, but I just think it needs to be improved. Taylor, tough one to swallow because he's a great player, but we can still improve on it. I've put KT, yes, please. That'd be good. Little loan deal. Come on. Let's believe, lads. Yeah, and you know, I've kind of half said maybe Bernabei, maybe Kobayashi, maybe Starfelt. We've kind of have improved on Starfelt, I think. I think that's the idea about it. The new signing Rocky. But yeah, so I'm like not super convinced on the other ones, but we can objectively say we should improve on them. So yeah, there's I think Scales and Welsh are the first two we should move on.
Anything
Yeah,
to add,
I
Liam?
mean I think we're all pretty much unanimous for that. That Scales and Welsh, their time's up. Welsh is in an unfortunate position because I think he's good enough to play for Scotland, but not necessarily good enough to start for Celtic every week. So much like a midfielder who we're going to talk about in a minute, I think he has to move on for the sake of his international career. Serie A would be a good place for him to go, assuming there's still interest there. I think Scottish players that have gone there tend to kick on and develop very well, and Italy is a great. It's maybe a wee bit better in terms of the conditioning and the discipline of players in terms of their fitness and things like that. So I think that it would be a very good environment for any young Scottish player to go into, but especially one like Welsh, if he wants to maintain the standards that are set at Celtic. Going to Italy is a place where he could do that at a noticeably smaller club.
Also with Italy, it's a bit of a slower paced game. So certain players that we're talking about in Welsh, and then also referring to another person in the midfield. I think we're talking about Turnbull. Am I right?
Yep.
His lack of speed wouldn't be an issue in Italy. He's technically a good footballer. It'd be a good move for him. So let's crack into the midfielders. This is one where you can take the axe to it, and this is where there's a lot of talk going, we've signed a lot of midfielders. Yeah, because when the guys we currently have, it's mainly Sorrow, David Turnbull, he's got 1 year left on his deal. Thiago Home, we just signed. James McCarthy. Kwon, just signed. Awada, we've just signed on a permanent. O'Reilly, Atade, McGregor, and they've listed on the club website that Jamesy Forrest is now a midfielder. And then B team, best options there, Rocco Varda and Ben Summers. So Rocco and Ben would be good guys to have in the squad for Champions League, get that quota that you need for homegrown. So that's what Rodgers did say he was looking at doing on the you guys you backload your homegrown players with you guys coming through your B team. So that's how you get around that in a little bit. Where he needs to go, Turnbull, he played well in Japan, and Rodgers likes to have a guy in the 10. So I see him stepping up and playing well, but if he doesn't sign a contract or get a contract extension by the end of the window, he'll probably be out the door. I think with the signing of Kwon coming in, then that's going to free, and Awada coming in to play in the midfield, that's going to free McGregor up to push forward into an 8 or a 10 role. But yeah, I think the main things are Sorrow out, Turnbull, McCarthy. They're the questions. So we'll go to you first, Shane.
Yeah, well, for me, I out of that list, there's probably only two that I'm knocking sort of off the list, and that's Sorrow and McCarthy. I'm going to go into bat for Turnbull, and this is all based around the fact that I think we are going to play with a 10, and you did mention it at the start of the discussion, Jared. If we play as a 10, and we've talked about having 2 players for every position, I think O'Reilly gets first shot at it, but Turnbull is a quality player. He's good on the ball. He's not going to be in the same kind of demanding team that he would have been under Ange, so I think some of his attributes that made him difficult to choose under Ange in his second season won't be a problem under Rodgers. And I could see him staying around and being given an opportunity because, and we've all talked about Haxa being potentially a 10. I don't know about anyone else. I'm yet to be convinced about Haxa. And so I think it makes sense for Turnbull to stay around. So out of that list, I'm only really getting rid of Sorrow and McCarthy.
Johnny?
I think I've been a bit more brutal. I've said Sorrow, McCarthy, and Ideguchi would be ones that I would just remove from the squad. I agree with people's sentiments about Turnbull as well. I also highlighted Turnbull as like a first team player that, you know, maybe isn't going to fit the system or XYZ. Just on that, Shane, about playing the number 10, I think Thiago Home can also play as a 10. So there's, you know, could be Matt O'Reilly as first choice and then Thiago Home as sort of the next one. So maybe Turnbull is just no longer kind of needed. Maybe that's why we bought Odin. That's it was a great name. Odin's just such a cool name. And then I also said Forrest. I think Forrest is probably the next guy that I think obviously he's not going to because he's got his contract extended until 2025 now. So I still highlighted it saying, look, you know, recognition that we're seeing the sort of end of this guy's Celtic career. I don't know if it's the end of his entire football career, but at least his Celtic career. So those are the midfielders that I think move on or get better, replace.
Robert Gibson makes a good comment here. McCarthy must stay is crucial in keeping the physios in the job.
Mental.
Liam,
Yeah.
John's just gone the list with an axe. You've got the katana blade behind you there. The El Samurai sword. I'm like, Liam comes with props here. Everyone, over to you.
Yeah. Aye. Well. Go on.
Now go on, Liam. We're waiting on you, mate. And you just
You still
frozen.
there, guys? I think we've blanked out here. Oh, hang on.
Technical difficulties.
Hang on a second.
You're good, Liam.
Just as you say that, somebody cut the line. How ironic, huh? Right. So I think I think that we cut McCarthy. That goes without saying. And Turnbull, I think for the sake of his Scotland career, he needs to move on. So he'll be moving on. It's a shame, you know, Turnbull's a great player, but just not a player that fits our system, I don't think, as we are now. Forrest is going to be a part of the squad for the next year or so, but he, I think, is quite content to step back and just be a bit part player. I think he realises his job. He's at that stage in his career now, but he's going to be a bit part player.
And Liam has dropped out. So James Forrest didn't agree with you, Liam. So he is not wanted.
So no, he was, you know, he's getting excited about his testimonial, and he's hearing that. He's like, no, not having it.
I don't know. Done. So we'll crack on to the forwards, and then when Liam, here we go. Liam is move him there, add him back here, and see what happens. There he is.
Right. So, how much of that spiel there did you get before I get cut off?
So we're
Every
saying
word.
that James Forrest doesn't want you in his testimonial because you've just slaughtered him. That's where we ended it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So what we do is we get Sorrow and McCarthy to get a couple of these katanas, recreate the final scene from Highlander, and whoever wins gets to stay in the team. Right? No. Seriously, Sorrow's out. McCarthy's out. Turnbull, I think, for the sake of his career, is out. Wish him well, good player, but I just don't think he quite fits what we need going forward. Forrest will stick around, but he's going to be happy being a bit part player, as John has already said. And yeah, Ideguchi's not coming back. He's going to find another club in Japan once he recovers from his injury, and I wish him all the best because it's a bloody shame. Twice now he's tried to make it in Europe, and twice injuries have just come at exactly the wrong moment for him. I think he's just destined to see out his career in the J League, unfortunately.
Talking about Gucci here, we'll bring up the Pork Chop Express's comment. I think Gucci suffered from a bit of culture shock in Scottish football. Won't be used to the knee-high tackles.
Well, no. Although, then again, it depends which martial art he studied in high school, doesn't it?
Yeah, fair point.
Who Pork Chop or Ideguchi?
Either or.
Either or.
All right, so we'll crack into the forwards. There's quite a few here to talk about. So, Kyogo, Haksabanovic, Albion Ayeti. Everyone forgot about Ayeti, didn't you? Because I sure as hell did.
Yep.
Lila
I did not.
Yang, O, Tilio, Maeda, Mikey Johnson, who doesn't have a kit number because his number 19 was given to O. And then from the B team, you've got Johnny Kenny, who's currently out on loan, and Joey Dawson. Neither of those two will cut it in the first team for me, so I'll just be brutal on the B team, guys. Haksabanovic, the TBA with him, is he a 10 or is he out the door? Ayeti, there's talk that we've tried to get him to tear up his contract and he's refusing. He's just collecting the check at the moment. So that leaves us with Abada. First, he's going to be a starter on the right. Then you got Yang backing him up. Then you're going to have Tilio and either Maeda on the left or Tilio and Haksabanovic on the left, with Maeda playing as a striker. Kyogo's out hurt, so it's plenty of flexibility there, but plenty of players who could potentially move well. So, Shane, I'll throw it to you, mate.
Well, Yeti's gone. Well, we wanted to be gone, but he clearly doesn't want to go. But for me, a Yeti. And look, I was hopeful of Mikey getting another chance under Brendan. I thought maybe this might be the circuit breaker he needs. I think with the most recent signings, that's pretty unlikely now. So for his own sake and to continue his footballing career, look, sometimes it just, for player and club, it doesn't work. And Mikey is unfortunately in that bracket. So all the best. Hope wherever he goes, he's a success. Haxa for me, so they're the two, and Haxa for me is a potential third. I haven't seen enough of him to kind of rate him as a starter or think that he'll be a consistent contributor for the upcoming season. But at the same time, I feel like I haven't seen enough to then sort of get rid of him either. So I'm a little bit kind of not sure whether to stick or twist on Haksabanovic. But they would be the three players I'd be looking at saying most likely to move on.
Johnny?
Yeah, Ayeti obviously needs to go. I didn't know that about his contract thing. Do you guys know how long he's got left on his contract? I'm hoping it's only
1 year.
1 year.
Yeah.
God. Okay.
So from one of the in-the-know agents who's actually been right on a few things recently on Twitter, this is the overall thing they gave. Scales out, and so in a matter of time. The Yeti's refusing to terminate his contract. Johnson injured for the foreseeable future. McCarthy has offers on the table, but is content in Scotland with his family. Uragiti's away, which was confirmed yesterday. And Sorrow was looking for a club because Brendan Rodgers doesn't want him around the first team. So that's an overall summary there. But so Ayeti is pretty much refusing to leave unless he gets paid off completely.
He's got every right to do that. I mean, he's an employee. He's got a contract, and he doesn't have to leave if he doesn't want to. That's the risk of signing players when they don't work out. But I mean, as soon as his contract's up, he'll be, he's taking a step down from Celtic. That's for sure. Obviously want him gone ASAP. Johnson, agree that his time's up. Kenny, don't see why we ever bought Kenny. Dawson, I guess, is one that I never thought about, but yeah, that's someone else that's surplus. And yeah, I agree with Shane. I can be convinced that Haksabanovic isn't cutting it at the moment. He's not. If you think about all the other wingers we've got, bar the ones that we've just signed, Tilio, Yang, and then I'd also caveat Forrest as well. He doesn't really give the same impact. He's not really found his feet. So I really think it's a make or break for him this season going forward. I'm hoping Rodgers brings it out is the best of his abilities and stuff. But I'm super 50-50 now that I think about it. It's make or break for Haksabanovic.
Put it this way: if we sign another forward, I think Haksabanovic is the first one out the door. Of the ones that we are still undecided about, I think we all agree Mikey Johnson's off, and Ajeti is, well, he was off a year ago, but it's just not been made official yet. I think that Haksabanovic is the next in line to be cut if we do decide to bring in any, because I think that our transfer business from here on out is going to be neutral, if you like, in the sense that it's going to be one out, one in. So I think that if we do bring in another attacker, Haksabanovic is out, which is a shame because I think there's a great player in there, but he's not consistent enough. The 2 games in Japan, and again, maybe not fair to judge a guy in 2 pre-season games, but Haksabanovic was one player I was really excited to see up close, and he just didn't do anything for me. It really didn't. Were it not for his new haircut, I wouldn't even have noticed he was playing, to be quite honest with you.
Hey Liam, speaking of that haircut, he looks like he should, with his do the way it is. Seriously, he could have gone the buzz cut and look like the mean Balkan, but he looks like he should be on Love Island or something with that sort of hairdo instead of playing football. Like he's looking like the absolute mega F boy out there at the moment. So yeah, I just wanted to mention his haircut and trash.
Eminem did it 25 years ago, and it wasn't fashionable then either.
he's going retro here, and it's not happening. Anyway, it's a little harsh there. So, in summary, guys, I think realistically, if we count through it, we've got 2 goalkeepers that probably should be moved on, or at least one. Segrist out, Bain dropped back to 3rd stringer. Agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, agreed.
And the defence, Scales out, Kobayashi on loan, I reckon. Welsh could potentially go, and then Ralston and Burnaby, if we upgrade over them, so be it.
Yeah.
Midfield, Sorrow out, McCarthy out. Forrester's going to be a bit part player, so we don't really need to worry about him. And Turnbull may go. So, and then you look at the forwards, and you've got a Yeti, Mikey, that brings us up to 10 players. And then Haksabanovic is one of those maybes as well. So we've got 9 players, realistically, to move, which will free up the wage bill and bring that squad bloat down massively. And then we've got a few other players there. Like, do you keep Haksabanovic? Does Turnbull sign a new deal and stay, or do they go? Realistically, if you get rid of those 9 to 11 players, they'll probably free up $100,000 a week easy in wages for the club. And then we can go and get all this talk in the media about marquee signings and this sort of stuff. If we actually want to go marquee signing, get a quality goalkeeper and, push the boat out a little bit and do that. Or if we want to get a quality number 10 or, another centre-back to go back on, alongside Carter Vickers. So you've got Carter Vickers, you've got Rocky, you've got Starfelt, and you've got another. So you've got 4 quality centre-backs battling out for 2 spots. That's only going to improve that baseline at the club. So for me, I'm looking at it going, it's an exciting time, but we've got to get some players out.
We do. I think I added it up like what I think people should move on, and I think it was another squad. It was another starting 11.
The funny thing is, though, John, with the players there, if you were to put them out, they'd still be a top 6 team in Scotland. If they could all stay healthy.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I definitely think we're at capacity though, so I don't think we'll be signing anyone else until, like you said, Jared, somebody else moves on. I think that's that.
Andrew Gallaire's in summary, we have a good young squad overall. Yep, we've got to clear up some of the deadwood in the background there.
Agree.
All right, so we'll just keep going. I don't care if it's a long podcast tonight because why not? So, Shane, you wanted to touch on the Aberdeen away seating situation.
Yeah, so there was a story that came out in one of the Red Tops about Aberdeen essentially following on with a few other clubs in reducing their allocation. And the headline and story was basically saying that Aberdeen are going to cut their away allocation from, I think, about 1,700 down to 300. A significant reduction in away fans being able to attend at Pittodrie. And so obviously, everyone was a little bit shocked by that and concerned. But looking into it, and I'm going to give a shout out to, I think it was Paul in our group chat who was sort of going through it with a little bit of a fine-tooth comb. If you actually look into what Aberdeen were mentioning, they're basically looking to make some changes to make the away situation more flexible at Pittodrie. Not necessarily that they're going to reduce the allocation immediately. I'm sure people tuning in have probably been away to Aberdeen before and will know that there's where the away fans are, there's a big sort of fence separating the away section from the other fans in that stand. And, you know, it doesn't really matter if a team brings a full capacity of away fans or not. That kind of whole section is for the away fans. So what it seems like they're actually going to do is trying to make that area more flexible so they can adjust on a per club basis and adjust where they need to, so that if they're playing Livy, it's a smaller allocation and they can let more matchday fans in. But if they're playing, you know, Celtic or Rangers, they can actually make it as wide as it needs to be so that they can have the appropriate amount of away fans in. And they did mention that they want to make sure they've got dialogue with clubs to make sure it's a reciprocal agreement, so that they get a suitable amount of away fans allowed to them at places like Paradise and so forth. But yeah, it was obviously a little bit of a sensationalist headline, but looking into it, it seems like it's more just we're trying to make it more flexible, not we're immediately cutting the allocation.
Yeah, so what you're saying there, Shane, is, and what they're looking like, even Willie got involved in the chat because he's from up that way. The away section is 1,700 seats. So what he was saying is that if you only get 40 or 100 people coming, say if Livy's coming, you still lose that whole 1,700 seats. Now, Aberdeen struggle to fill their stadium most of the time anyway, so I can understand them wanting to make some changes. But realistically, I can see it as, my question is, are they still building their new stadium, or is this going to be, are they just going to be updating Pittodrie? Because I can understand the reasoning behind it, especially when the Huns are only going to give them, 600, 700 tickets to a game. So you don't want to give them 1,700, you're going to give them the same, which is great. That'll be a good way to do it. But yeah, I just think there's some question marks there, but I understand why they're doing it though.
Yep.
To me, it's just it's what every club should be doing, which is reciprocal arrangements. Aberdeen want to be in a position where, provided Celtic give their fans as many tickets as they want, they'll give us as many tickets as we want within reason. If you're going to have clubs like the Huns who are going to insist, no, we're only giving you 300 or whatever, Aberdeen can say, well, fine, you're only getting 300. To me, it's about Aberdeen taking back the power from the bigger clubs. And I think that, you know, introducing a greater element of democracy to this is not a bad idea. All of the ticketing issues that have been in Scottish football for the last couple of years, it all goes back to Rangers throwing the toys out the pram because there were too many Celtic fans partying too often at Ibrox. That is where it all stems from, right? They can dress it up as, oh, we want more of our own fans. Nonsense, right? The team were getting gubbed continuously on the park and they couldn't handle it. And the rest of Scottish football's had to suffer as a result. And I liked, again, read beyond the headline, because the headline was sensationalist pish. Read beyond the headline, and actually what you see is Aberdeen as a well-managed, responsible club doing their best to try and take back some of the power that Rangers have decided to allocate themselves when it comes to ticketing in Scotland. And I hope other clubs will step up and do the same and say to Rangers, fine, you be as unreasonable as you want, but we're going to be equally unreasonable with you. Because, right, there's also the thing at Pittodrie. If there's a 1,700 section and say they only give Rangers 500 tickets, right? If those 500 seats get trashed and there's the additional policing cost, which you know there's going to have to be when Rangers play Aberdeen, because it is in some ways even more venomous than when Celtic play Rangers, then you know you're going to need those additional costs, and it becomes a case of, well, is it really worth giving them any tickets for all the trouble it's going to cause? And that's where there's an element which, of course, never gets raised in the Scottish press because it doesn't fit the agenda. But there's an element of don't bite the hand that feeds you. And Rangers are consistently biting the hand that feeds them by taking this attitude with other teams, forgetting that other teams can also decide how many tickets to give to their fans. And to me, this is Aberdeen taking that stand, or at least looking at the possibility of taking that stance. And I say fair play to them, good luck to them. If it means Celtic get a slightly smaller allocation, but Aberdeen have greater autonomy, I'm all for it. Because I'll be watching the game on the telly anyway.
You know what I'll put this down to, Liam? I'm going to say it. This is the Alan Burrows effect, because he did a similar thing, did not let the Huns walk all over him when he was at Motherwell. I think he's one of the best sports administrators in Scotland. And for me, him coming in his first time in the club, first off-season, and looking at things and going, why are we giving up this much when we only need to give this much for reciprocal reasons? Let's fix that issue. And then we can try and, then if we're not giving them as much, we don't have to, tarp off as much to keep people away from a raiding mob and all this sort of stuff. So it makes sense. And I think it's just great management on his part to basically come in and go, I don't care who you are. This is what we're going to do for our club. And if you don't like it, deal with it. Like, it makes sense.
Exactly.
However,
and I agree with you about Alan Burrows. He's a superb administrator, and Scottish football needs more people like him.
Yep, 100%. The other thing, though, is it does kind of make the league look a little tin pot. With the whole overall limiting your away support at games, but that's a bigger issue. And when you've got 3 or 4 clubs doing that, and you need the 11-1 vote to get something through to make sure everyone has a certain allocations has to be granted, it's not going to fix anytime soon. So we'll just get on with it, I suppose. So we mentioned James's testimonial earlier in the pod. That's coming up, was it next week? So we'll talk about that on next week's pod. But last thing to discuss today, on the weekend, we're playing Wolves at the Aviva in Dublin. So the game that was supposed to be over in Korea. I think all I'm going to say on that is it's another preseason game. Get more runs on the legs, get a look at the formations. I'm happy with just get out there, play these games. Not going to put too much pressure on them. But it will be good to see, the next step up on what's Rodgers doing tactically, what's happening with the players, who's getting more game time, what sort of, formations are being built and who's playing well together, that sort of stuff. So that's the exciting stuff of the off-season. But the most exciting thing overall is Celtic's playing a game in Dublin. All the Irish fans who travel over week in, week out to watch us play, I'm absolutely rapt that the boys are coming to their home country the same way they came to see us last year down here in Australia. They've gone over to Japan where Liam got to see them. And now the Irish fans are getting them in their own home country as well. That's amazing. Have fun, the lot of yous. Get on the green Guinness and just, I'm looking forward to seeing that crowd and that game and just, have fun, guys. Anyone got anything you want to add before we wrap the pod up?
Oh, I was just going to second your comments. It's good to see them back in Ireland. First time back in Ireland since 2018 and the first time back at the Aviva since 2016. So really just want to echo your comments, Jared. Hope everyone has an awesome time.
There's also a wee bit of added spice whenever we play an English team. So getting that particular scalp would be nice, just to kind of shut up a few of the more arrogant elements of the English media. So, pre-season friendly, but I still hope we win and win well.
Fair enough. All right. So, before we go to our final thoughts, if you haven't done so on YouTube and you're watching on there, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're trying to keep growing the channel. If you're on Facebook, jump on, like our page, Celtic Down Under. We've got a Facebook group. Get on there, put topics in there, chat about whatever things come up with games and that sort of stuff. We're happy for that to happen. We want to grow that community as well. And then we can grab topics that you guys are enjoying talking about in the group, and we can bring them into the podcast as well. So that's something that I want to grow this season. Instagram and Threads now, because of the whole thing. we're at Celtic Down on there. Twitter, Celtic Down as well, or X, whatever he's calling it now. Not XXX.com, just X.com. We're on there at Celtic Down. You'll figure it out. And we'll wrap the pod up there. So my final thought, Liam, this is for you, mate. They're now known as Red Rippers. Red Rippers over here in Australia. You're known as Redskins because you got sunburn, mate. I came with props too, Liam. You got a
well done, mate. Well done. You're learning from the best. Well done.
Shane, final thought.
Women's World Cup related. Canada's playing the Republic of Ireland, and kickoff's about an hour's time, I think, actually, now come to think of it, over in Perth. So if anyone's interested, I'd recommend tuning in. The Irish girls gave the Matildas a really good game last week, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they go up against Canada.
Johnny?
I'll just do my music suggestion, as I normally do. Guy I came across, if you like your soul singers or a little bit R&B, guy called Teddy Swims. Just to himself, there's no real accompaniment. Brilliant, very big vocals, sort of similar to Rag and Bone Man if you enjoy him as well. So guy called Teddy Swims.
And Liam, send us home with something funny, no pressure.
Well, first of all, I just want to say happy 40th anniversary to my mum and dad. They celebrated 40 years of being married on Sunday just past there. I was born 5 months later, so read into that what you will. But anyway, it was great to see the photos of the family all together, and hopefully everybody had a great night. That's all I've got to say for myself today. Oh, wee bit of wisdom for you. Before you judge a man, walk a mile in his shoes. Because afterwards, who cares? He's a mile away and you've got his shoes.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. How. See you next week.
Hello.
Hello.